guys, it's Paradise, and today we're diving into Borderlands 4 because thanks to 2K Games, we've got access to the game, and specifically for this preview, we can talk about the mission called Rush the Gate. Now before we jump in, a quick note on what we can and can't cover. This preview is limited to just this single mission, so all the gameplay you're seeing is from Rush the Gate or official trailer and gameplay. We can't talk about what comes before or after, but don't worry, we've actually finished the full story, so you can expect a much deeper review closer to launch with all the juicy details. But for now though, let's break down how Borderlands 4 is shaping up, what stood out to us, and how it actually feels to play. So let's set the scene as we've been provided with a recap for you. After arriving in the Fade Fields, the player Vault Hunter has teamed up with the Crimson Resistance in their fight against Idolator Sol, one of the Timekeeper's top lieutenants. Now, the player is taking the fight to Sol's fortress, and well, this basically plays out like a dungeon crawl filled with enemies, badasses, and objectives. You'll learn new mechanics like throwing gas bombs at armored doors to break through, which actually comes back in the boss fight later on at the end. There's also a really cool section where you're blasting docking clamps off of Sol's ship, which makes the mission feel a bit more dynamic than just shooting your way through waves of enemies. And speaking of shooting though, the combat feels a lot smoother than before, and the weapon variety is way stronger than in Borderlands 3. You're constantly picking up weapons that feel good to shoot, with perks that make you actually want to swap out and test everything. Gear excitement feels like it's back, and builds have been massively expanded on thanks to more skill trees and options, so you aren't just funneled into just one or two playstyles. Movement is another standout. Between grappling, sliding, air dashing, and gliding, traversal feels way more fluid, almost Destiny-like, which actually fits Borderlands even better. And it really gets fun when it all clicks in combat, and you're zipping around, grappling objects to throw at enemies, and it just all feels fantastic. One of the cool things is how alive the world feels with details packed throughout. For this preview, we can only talk about the game in the context of this mission, and since you only get to experience a little bit of the world before the mission starts, we'll keep this under wraps until our full review. This is, however, a mission, and missions will now grant you loot boxes once completed, with costumes and random weapons, which is a great incentive to replay the mission thanks to the new mission replay feature, which makes going back and doing missions much easier, efficient, and fun, although that has already been officially revealed earlier. Co-op also has some nice updates too, and since 26 and I play together, joining up and forming a party is made super easy. Matchmaking is also there, crossplay is supported, and you can even ping enemies' chests or objects, which makes for smoother teamwork during gameplay. So every time you spot a weapon chest in a hidden corner or a badass that you need to focus down, it's made a lot easier to cooperate. The loot system also has some big quality of life upgrades too. It's easier to sell loot, mark loot in different ways, and manage your inventory in general. And the new ordnance slot replaces grenades and heavy weapons, putting them on a cooldown rather than forcing you to hunt for ammo. This means you can use them way more freely, and some of these things hit really hard. I tried a cannon that chunked enemies, a saw launcher that ricochets, and teleporting grenades that bounce and explode that just wrecked mobs. Rep kits are another new system, and they're a lot more than just healing. Some of them can apply overshields and lifesteal or buff your damage, and it feels like these could be core to builds later in the game. The inventory menu itself is also better laid out, but at least in co-op, opening your inventory can be a little frustrating at times as the game keeps running in the background, and you can literally get downed while you're sorting your gear. Plus it takes a couple seconds to get in and out of the menu, which does feel a bit slower than I would like. For the Vault Hunters, we played as both Amon and Vex. Now, Amon didn't feel amazing at first, but once you really got going and leveled up, he becomes an absolute powerhouse, punching his way through enemies and tanking in fights. He was a beast in this mission. For me on Vex, however, it was very different from past Sirens. You're really heavily leaning into the summoning side of things. Her skill trees feel distinct and strong, and summoning classes in games are often tricky to balance, but at least in this mission she felt great to play. Now, the mission itself does culminate in a boss fight against Idolator Sol, and this is where Borderlands 4 really shines. The fight isn't just a big bullet sponge, you're using new mechanics like waiting for a certain attack to grapple the previously mentioned gas tanks and then throw them to remove his shields. You'll be dodging bombardments, avoiding electrified zones, and aiming for weak points in the form of these weird bulges. It felt thematic, fun, and mechanically engaging. instead of just being like fighting a super tanky badass. Playing in co-op made it feel even better, with 2-6 running on Amon being able to get up close while I was of course playing with the clones to control the battlefield. The only downside is that the gated health bars are still there. We totally get why though, so that you can't just nuke down a boss instantly, and having layered phases or mechanics in a boss fight is nice. But that downtime where you literally can't damage a boss while it gears up to do its next big attack or whatever it's doing does feel kinda bad. That said, it is still a very fun fight, and since you can replay missions, you could repeat farm this for loot. And my overall opinion on the gameplay and boss fight, at least in the context of this mission, is that it's been fantastic. It's a definite highlight, and as a gameplay driven person, it will have to check that box to keep me interested, and Borderlands 4 is delivering on that front. Now let's take a turn and talk about performance, because it is a bit ropey at the moment. On our RTX 4080 rigs and i7 CPUs, frame rates were solid enough, around 60 to 70 in cluttered combat moments and boss fights with frame gen on. Without it, it dips down to 30 to 40. But honestly, it's completely playable, and since with frame gen you have over 60 pretty much all of the time, it feels great. The bigger issue though is stuttering. Moving through areas quickly often causes hitches and brief freezes, which really breaks up the flow of things. Supposedly this is going to be fixed in a day one patch, and to be fair, the stability itself is excellent. Neither of us have had a single crash so far, but still the stuttering is something that really needs addressing. Another co-op issue we ran into is that if you're not the party leader, sometimes your bullets just don't connect to enemies. In the middle of a fight, that can be incredibly frustrating, so hopefully it's something that Gearbox is aware of and working on. On the other side of things, I play on mouse and keyboard while 2-6 plays on controller, and I want to point out that the default sensitivity on the mouse was weirdly high. I had to lower it by a whole 20% across the board to make it feel normal, and that's unusual for me because I basically never adjust my sensitivity settings in any game, and my mouse is always set to my specific DPI. It's not a deal breaker, but it's just worth flagging if mouse and keyboard players feel it's a bit off. Now overall, Borderlands 4 is shaping up to be the most fun I've had with the series since Borderlands 2. The expanded builds, the smoother combat, better loot variety, and a more alive world really captures that sense of discovery. The mission here was fun, the boss felt really engaging, and the co-op is super easy to jump into. But the technical issues are a real hindrance right now, and whether that gets fixed will really make or break it for a lot of people's experience. Still, from what I've played so far, the core gameplay is really strong and engaging. We'll need way more hours in the endgame to know how it holds up, but my impressions in the context of this mission is that it's very promising. So that's it for our preview of Borderlands 4. We'll have more coverage and a full review closer to launch, but let me know in the comments, what's the one thing you want to see in Borderlands 4? Is it more loot variety, bigger bosses, a better story? Drop your thoughts down below and subscribe for more Borderlands 4 coming your way very, very soon. Here at Arekkz Gaming, we're two friends who love to play games. You have me, Paradise, as well as 2-6.
Our goal is to keep the videos as concise as possible by cutting out any of the fluff and focusing on what really matters with high quality videos.
So make sure you're subscribed down below for more videos on your favorite games coming very, very soon.